My son was out driving around with other women, while his wife lay in a hospital bed fighting for her life, and when he bragged about it to me, I said one sentence that destroyed him. Before I tell you what I said, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a comment so the algorithm pushes this story to more amazing people like you. The story begins on a bitter Wednesday morning in Ohio, the kind where the air feels heavy before you even step outside. The neighborhood was silent, the sky a thick blanket of gray, the kind that makes everything look a little washed out. I was standing in my kitchen, waiting for my old coffee maker to spit out something drinkable, when the phone rang. The sound was sharp, slicing through the quiet house like a warning. I glanced at the caller ID, and my stomach tightened. It was my daughter-in-law's sister, Emily. She wasn't someone who called early in the morning, unless it was important. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and answered. What came through wasn't words at first, it was panic. Full, breathless sobbing that made it hard to even understand who she was. Emily, honey, slow down, I said, gripping the counter because her panic already told me everything wasn't okay. You need to breathe. Tell me what's wrong. She tried, but her breath kept hitching, her voice cracking as if the words themselves hurt to say. Finally, after what felt like a minute of her trying to swallow her tears, she got it out. Helen, she collapsed. Lindsay collapsed. She's in the ICU. They don't know if she's going to make it. The world shifted. The floor seemed to tilt under my feet. I sank onto the kitchen chair because my legs didn't feel strong enough to hold me. For a second, I couldn't reply. Everything in me rebelled against the idea my Lindsay, the girl who baked banana bread for the whole family, the sweet woman who spent weekends tutoring kids who lived in tough neighborhoods, the one who made sure I had warm socks every Christmas because she knew circulation wasn't my friend anymore. No, that wasn't possible. But Emily wasn't the type to exaggerate, and her voice carried a fear that felt like a knife to my heart. How bad? I whispered, though I already knew the answer. You don't call family early in the morning unless things are very, very wrong. Emily broke again, sobbing harder, and that was all the answer I needed. I didn't remember grabbing my keys or putting on the wrong pair of shoes. I realized halfway down the driveway that I had slipped on one winter boot and one sneaker. I didn't care. I just got in the car and drove, my hands trembling so badly they kept slipping on the steering wheel. The hospital was 20 minutes away, but it felt like a cruel eternity. My heart pounded the entire time, my mind racing through every possibility. A random collapse, a hidden illness, a stroke. She was 27. People don't just collapse at 27. They go to brunch, laugh with friends, plan their futures. I kept whispering, please be okay, please be okay, as if repeating it could make it real. When I finally barreled through the ICU doors, I expected to see my son, her husband, sitting there, worried, out of his mind. He should have been pacing, demanding updates, praying, doing anything a man does when the love of his life is fighting for breath. But he wasn't there. I told myself he must be inside the room, or talking to a doctor, or maybe he hadn't heard yet. My son wasn't a perfect man, not by a long shot, but he wasn't cruel. He wasn't heartless. He wouldn't abandon her in an emergency. Emily ran up to me, her face red and swollen, mascara streaked across her cheeks. He didn't come, she choked out. We called him so many times. What do you mean, he didn't come? I asked, my throat tightening. He must not know yet. Her head shook violently. He knows. Mom called him. Dad called him. I called him. He didn't answer. He didn't come. My chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. No, that didn't make sense. My son might be careless, distracted, a little selfish at times, but he wasn't made of stone. I walked to the nurse's station, needing to hear it from someone else. Has her husband been contacted? I asked. The nurse nodded, multiple times. No response. The words hit like cold water. All the color drained from my face. I felt ashamed even though I hadn't done anything. Ashamed because my son should have been there. Ashamed because everyone was looking at me with pity. Ashamed because deep down, a tiny part of me wondered if maybe he had become the kind of man who wouldn't show up. I knew marriage had been rough for them lately. Arguments, silent treatment, stress, but people still show up in emergencies. At least, people with hearts. When the doctor came to tell us we could see her, I followed her parents into the room. The sight of her nearly took me out. She lay motionless, pale, her chest rising with the help of machines, tubes, monitors, beeping sounds, everything screaming that her body was fighting a battle she never signed up for. I put my hand on hers. It was cold, too cold. Sweetheart, I whispered, my voice breaking. I'm here. I'm right here. And time felt like it froze. Her parents cried quietly beside me. The machines beeped steadily, and the empty space next to her bed, the one her husband should have been standing in, felt like a wound. At that moment, a thought slipped into my mind. Where the hell is my son? A question that would soon be answered in the ugliest way imaginable. A truth so cruel it would change everything I believed about him. A truth I wish I never had to know. The ICU room felt like a place suspended between life and death. Too bright, too sterile, too quiet. Machines hummed in a rhythm that felt almost cruel. Like they were reminding us with every beat that her body wasn't doing the work on its own. Her face was pale, almost translucent. Her lips dry, her eyelids heavy and still. Somewhere inside her, a battle was raging. But she looked like a sleeping child who had simply grown too tired. Her mother stood on the other side of the bed, gripping the guardrail with white knuckles. Her father stood stiffly at the foot of the bed, his jaw clenched so hard I could hear his teeth grind from where I was standing. The man never cried in all the years I'd known him. I'd only seen one tear, and that was when his own mother died. But now tears streamed down his face in silent, unstoppable lines. We all expected him, my son, to burst into the room at any second, maybe disheveled, maybe panicked, but present, because no matter how strained a marriage is, no matter how many arguments or resentments or disappointments stack up when you love someone, truly love them, you show up at the hospital. Even strangers do that for each other sometimes. A husband should do no less. But minutes kept passing, then an hour, then two, and he didn't come. I paced the hallway, ignoring the judgmental glances from nurses and visitors who clearly sensed something was wrong. A husband not showing up for a medical emergency. People had opinions about that, and for the first time in my life, their judgment felt deserved. Not for me, but for the man I had raised. I couldn't defend him because I didn't know where he was, and I didn't know why he wasn't there. By late morning, anxiety twisted into anger. I went to the waiting room, sat in a rigid plastic chair, and called him again. The phone barely rang before it went straight to voicemail. That sinking feeling in my stomach grew heavier. I texted him, "Emergency. I see you. Answer your phone." Nothing. I stared at the screen, willing it to light up. It didn't. Emily walked over and handed me a cup of water, her hands trembling. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "We tried everything." He didn't respond to any of us. She looked like she felt guilty for what he was doing, or rather, what he wasn't doing. I shook my head because I didn't want her feeling responsible. "This isn't your fault, it's mine." Her eyes widened. No, it's not." But deep in my heart, a brutal thought spread like poison. Did I raise him wrong? Did I fail to teach him empathy, loyalty, decency? I pushed the thought away because I needed to focus, but it lingered in the corners of my mind. Around noon, I finally stepped outside to get some air. Hospitals have a way of swallowing you whole, all the grief, fear, and helplessness mixing with harsh fluorescent lights until you forget what time it is. I stepped into the cold air, letting the wind sting my cheeks just to feel something besides dread. That's when my phone rang. His name lit up the screen. Finally, my heart leaped, but not with relief, more with a kind of desperate, shaky longing for him to have a good explanation. Something, anything. I didn't care what it was. A dead battery, a work emergency, a breakdown on the highway. I just needed him to have tried to get here. But when I answered, I didn't hear panic. I didn't hear fear. I heard loud music, bass rumbling, high-pitched laughter, a woman's laughter. In the background, "Mom, what's up?" he said casually. My heart dropped so fast it felt like it hit the pavement. For a moment, I couldn't speak. My tongue felt numb. My brain refused to accept what I was hearing. "Where are you?" I said slowly, because I needed to hear him say it. "I'm out driving," he replied, cheerful, carefree, cruising around with some friends. A pause, then a giggle behind him. A girl's voice. "Who are you talking to?" He started laughing. "Just my mom chillin'." My stomach twisted so violently, I had to grip the railing beside me. I felt like the ground had opened under me. Driving around with girls while his wife lay in a hospital bed fighting for her life. I said, "Do you realize what's happening? Lindsay is in the ICU. She collapsed. She's not breathing on her own." He didn't immediately respond. The music kept blasting. The laughter didn't stop. Finally he said, "Mom, I needed a break. You're being dramatic." Something inside me cracked. Not loudly, quietly, like a hairline fracture spreading across glass. You needed a break, I repeated, my voice trembling. He sighed, actually sighed. I'll swing by later. I echoed. Yeah, she'll be fine, he said. She always exaggerates stuff. Exaggerates, as if this was a headache or a sore throat, not organ failure, not a fight for her life. The wind suddenly felt colder, harsher. It nearly took the breath out of me. I asked him, voice shaking with disbelief, "Are you drunk?" He laughed. "Not yet." A girl in the background said, "Come on, let's go." And he said, "Hang on." He returned to the phone, voice light to light. "Mom, seriously, relax. I'll see her later." It wasn't the wrong words. It wasn't even the cruel words. It was the carelessness in them, the indifference, the apathy, the complete disconnect from reality. A husband should be at his wife's side when she falls, but my son wasn't even on the same emotional planet when he hung up. The silence around me felt strange, too quiet compared to the chaos in my head. I stared at my phone until my vision blurred, then I walked back inside. Her mother looked at me with watery, hopeful eyes. "Is he coming?" My throat tightened. Shame burned behind my ribs. There are moments in life when you want the ground to swallow you whole, when the truth feels like a spotlight exposing everything you never wanted anyone to see. I whispered, "No, not right now." Her father clenched his fists. His whole body trembled with rage, hurt, betrayal. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. A realization. A beginning. The first spark of something cold and sharp. The thing that would later grow into the sentence that destroyed him. Because the truth was becoming clearer and clearer with every passing minute. I didn't know my son anymore. The drive that broke me. I didn't sleep at all that night. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall as if the truth would rewrite itself if I looked hard enough. My son, the boy I carried, the boy I raised, the boy whose scraped knees I kissed and whose victories I celebrated, had turned into a stranger I no longer recognized. And his wife, his sweet, gentle, loyal wife, she was fighting for her life while he was out driving with girls. Girls, plural. The word felt poisonous in my mouth. Every hour that passed, I replayed his daughter's voice in my head. "Mom, Daddy wasn't at the hospital. He was outside with girls. They laughed. They hugged him." The way she had said girls, with confusion instead of anger, broke me. Children don't know infidelity. They don't know betrayal. All they know is what they see. And she saw her father choosing fun over family, choosing excitement over responsibility, choosing strangers over the woman who gave him everything. At around 6 a.m., I finally got up and went into the kitchen. I made coffee I never drank and stared out the window at my neighborhood waking up. Dogs barking, sprinklers turning on, people heading to work. Everyone else's world kept moving. Mine was standing still. I kept whispering to myself, "Why? Why would he do this? Why?" But no answer came. Around 8 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was my son. His message said, "Mom, can you pick up Mia from school today? I have stuff to handle." Stuff. His wife was in a hospital bed with wires attached to her chest. And he had stuff. One typed and deleted at least 5 responses before I settled on, "I'll get her." He didn't deserve my help, but his daughter did. When I picked up little Mia that afternoon, she climbed into the car with the heaviest silence I've ever heard from a child. "Hey, baby," I said softly, buckling her seatbelt. "Rough day." She stared forward. "Daddy didn't come see Mommy." Something inside me cracked. I placed a hand on her tiny shoulder. "I know, sweetheart." She turned toward me slowly, her eyes watering. "Mommy cried. Mom." She asked for him all morning. She kept saying his name. My throat burned. "What did he say when you told him that?" She shook her head. "I didn't tell him. He wasn't there. He left again." I gripped the steering wheel to stop myself from shaking. "He left again." I took a slow breath, trying to steady my voice. "Where did he go?" She shrugged the way little kids do when they're trying not to cry. "Same place as yesterday. He went outside and got into that pretty car with the girls." Pretty car girls laughing, touching him, while his wife, this child's mother, begged for him. I wanted to scream. I wanted to pull over and scream into my hands until my rage exhausted itself. But there was a child in the back seat, a child who needed me to be calm, even when my soul was set on fire. So instead, I asked gently, "What did Mommy say?" This time, Mia didn't hold back her tears. She said, "Where is he? Why isn't he here?" And she cried and cried, "Mom." I didn't know what to do. That was the moment something inside me hardened. This wasn't just a husband being careless. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This wasn't a mistake. This was abandonment. Willful, disgusting, heart-shattering abandonment. His wife wasn't dying because of something she did. She wasn't dying because she lived recklessly. She wasn't dying because she made bad choices. Life had just been cruel to her. But my son, he was choosing cruelty. And that, I could not forgive. When we got home, I made Mia her favorite snack and sat with her while she drew pictures. I pretended to smile, pretended to be at ease, pretended everything was normal. But inside, I was preparing for a conversation that would tear through every lie he thought. He was hiding. Around 7 p.m., I heard the front door open. My son walked in wearing cologne, fresh cologne, the kind he used to save for dates. He looked good, too good, hairstyled, shirt new, expression carefree. He had the nerve, the audacity to look relaxed. "Hey Mom," he said casually, dropping his keys on the table. I stared at him with a coldness I didn't know I was capable of feeling toward my own child. "Where have you been?" I asked quietly. He froze, but only for a second. "Out," he shrugged, walking toward the fridge. "Out where?" "Just out." I leaned back in my chair, studying him. "You smell like perfume." He didn't even look ashamed, just annoyed. "Mom, don't start." "Then tell me the truth." He sighed dramatically. "It's not a big deal." Those words made something hot and violent rise inside me. His wife's tears, his daughter's fear, his excuses, his selfishness. I stood up slowly. "Your wife is in a hospital bed wondering why she isn't enough for you," I said, each word trembling with disappointment. "Your daughter is scared, and you're out laughing with girls." He swallowed, but defiance rose in his eyes. "You don't know the full story." "Then tell me." He hesitated. Then he said, "She's going to die anyway, Mom." My entire body went numb. He continued, not even trying to lower his voice. "I don't want to sit there and watch that happen. I can't deal with all that sadness. I need distractions." Distractions, while his wife was fighting for life. My hands shook. "You coward," I whispered. "You absolute coward." He glared at me. "Don't talk to me like that." "I'll talk to you however I need to," I said, stepping closer, "because clearly no one else is going to tell you the truth." He looked away, jaw tight, like a teenager caught misbehaving, not a grown man abandoning his dying wife. "You think you're suffering," I said, voice breaking. "She's the one dying. She's the one scared. She's the one wondering why the man she loves suddenly disappeared." He flinched. Good kid he should. I moved even closer and lowered my voice. "And when she dies, if she does, you will never forgive yourself for these days. Not ever." His face went pale. But before he could answer, Mia stepped into the room. "Daddy," she whispered. He turned toward her. Her little voice shook. "When is Mommy coming home?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. And that was the moment I knew. He had broken all of us. Not just his wife, not just himself, his daughter, me, everyone. But he didn't know yet that my response would destroy him. Not yet. But soon, very soon. The night I decided enough was enough. After Mia walked into the room, everything went completely still. My son's bravado evaporated. His shoulders dropped. He looked at his daughter the way a guilty man looks at the one person he can't lie to, with shame creeping up his spine like ice. "Hey, sweetheart," he said softly, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. But she didn't go to him. She came to me instead. She grabbed my hand with both of hers, squeezing tight, as if holding on to me helped her stay steady. "Daddy," she whispered again, "when is Mommy coming home?" He blinked rapidly, struggling for an answer. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. For once, his excuses dried up. Eventually he muttered, "Soon, maybe soon." I felt her tiny fingers tremble in my palm. She whispered, "But the nurse said she might not." And then her voice quivered. "She keeps asking for you. Why don't you come?" Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence that filled the entire kitchen. My son stared at her, stared at the innocence, the confusion, the hurt, and still said nothing. Not a single word. He couldn't, because guilt was choking him, and he deserved every second of it. I knelt beside her. "Sweetheart, Mommy loves you, and she knows you love her. That's what matters most." She nodded, wiping her eyes, but she didn't look at her father. She didn't even glance his way. That broke him more than anything I had said. After I took Mia to her room to rest, I returned to the kitchen where my son sat slumped in a chair, both hands over his face. He didn't look like a grown man. He didn't even look like my son. He looked like someone who had no idea how to fix what he had ruined. I sat across from him, not close enough to comfort him, just close enough to make sure he didn't run away from the truth. You need to go to the hospital, I said calmly. He didn't lift his head. No. I blinked, stunned. No. He dropped his hands and stared at the table. I can't do it, Mom. I can't walk into that room again. I can't see her with all those tubes, looking like she's fading. And you think she wants to look that way? I snapped. You think she's enjoying being trapped in a body that's failing her? He closed his eyes tightly, like my words physically hurt. I'm not strong enough for this, he whispered. I leaned forward. That's your excuse for leaving her alone. His jaw clenched. I didn't leave her alone. You absolutely did, I said. You left her emotionally, mentally, physically. You left her alone at the exact moment she needed you more than she ever has. He pushed his chair back. You don't understand. Every time I go, she cries. She grabs my hand like she's begging me not to leave. She asks if I'll take care of Mia. She talks like she's already gone. I can't handle that. I don't want to hear her goodbye. I stared at him, stunned. So you decided to give her your goodbye first. His face flushed with guilt. I continued, voice low but fierce. Do you know what makes love real? It's not the good days. Anyone can love during the good days. It's the days when life breaks you. It's showing up even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. He swallowed hard. You think your pain is worse than hers? I said. You think watching her struggle is harder than living it? He didn't answer, and that silence was loud enough. After a moment he muttered defensively, I needed a break. I let out a humorless laugh. A break? You call driving around with girls a break? You call flirting, laughing, letting them touch you a break? His shoulders stiffened. It's not like that. I leaned in. Then tell me exactly what it is. He looked away. I waited. 1 second. 10 seconds. 20. Nothing. Because he had no explanation. No justification. No story that made him look less heartless. I stood up slowly. I'm done begging you to be a husband, I said. I'm done pleading with you to be the man your wife believes you are. He looked up, eyes wide. Mom, no. I cut him off. You don't get to mom your way out of this. He sank back into his chair, defeated. You know what I think? I said. I think you're terrified, not of losing her, but of seeing the consequences of your own inaction. His breath hitched. You're scared she'd look at you with disappointment. You're scared she asked where you were. You're scared she'd die, knowing you abandoned her. He shoved a hand through his hair, voice shaking. Stop. Just stop. I will, I replied, right after you listen. I exhaled deeply, letting years of maternal instinct fight through the anger. You don't run from someone who loves you. Not when they're dying. Not when they're scared. And especially not when you made vows. Vows you're currently breaking without a second thought. He whispered, I'm not a bad person. I looked him straight in the eyes. You're acting like one. He flinched. For the first time in days, my son looked truly broken, not angry, not defensive, not arrogant, just broken, he whispered. I don't know how to fix this. And something cold and determined formed inside me. You fix it, I said, by doing the right thing, even if it hurts, especially if it hurts. He stared at me, desperate. What does that mean? It means you go to that hospital tonight, not tomorrow, not next week. Tonight, you sit by your wife's bed. You hold her hand. You let her know she's not alone. His lip trembled. I don't know if I can. Well, I said quietly, then you don't deserve her. And when she's gone, you don't get to cry about it. His entire body tensed. You're my mother, he said weakly. Why are you saying this? Because, I replied, I love your wife too. And she deserves better than this version of you. He shut his eyes tightly, tears falling despite his efforts to hide them. Good. He needed to feel that pain. He needed to feel something real, something human, instead of hiding behind distractions and girls and excuses. Because I was preparing something he didn't see coming, something he wouldn't be able to escape, a truth so sharp it would cut through every lie he'd wrapped himself in, a truth that would destroy him. And he had no idea. But he was about to find out. The words I knew would break him. I didn't sleep again that night. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that presses on your chest, that makes you aware of every breath, every heartbeat, every thought you'd rather not think. My son stayed in the living room for a long time after our conversation. I could hear him pacing, sometimes stopping, sometimes whispering to himself as if trying to build up courage, or maybe trying to justify what he had been doing. But he never went to the hospital, not that night. Not even after everything. I said. He was still running. Running from pain, running from responsibility, running from the mirror I'd held up in front of him. And I realized something. Talking wasn't enough. Lectures weren't enough. Motherly disappointment wasn't enough. He needed something stronger, something that couldn't be ignored, denied, or pushed aside. He needed the truth, the whole truth, without filters, without kindness softening the blow. He needed the one thing he had been avoiding, to hear exactly what his wife had said about him when he wasn't around. Because I knew something he didn't. Something she told me privately, something she whispered when the doctors weren't in the room, and she thought no one else could hear. And I had kept that truth from him, until now. The next morning, I found him sitting at the kitchen counter staring at his phone, as if hoping news would come, news that would absolve him of having to make a decision. His eyes were red, not from tears, from exhaustion. He didn't look at me right away. Is Mia up? He asked quietly. Yes, I said. I got her ready for school. He nodded, expression empty. She asked about her mother again. I continued. He winced. No, I corrected him coldly. You don't know, because you weren't there to answer her. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. I sat down across from him, folded my hands, and prepared myself for what I needed to say last night. I said calmly, I realized something important. He finally lifted his eyes. What? That you're not avoiding the hospital because you're scared she'll die, I said. You're avoiding it because you're scared she'll tell you how much you've hurt her. His expression cracked, just barely, but enough to show the truth had hit him. Don't know that, he whispered. Oh, but I do, I said, because she told me. His eyes widened. What? I took a long, steady breath. Your wife talked to me before things got worse. She asked me to speak to you. She told me things she was too scared to say herself. He swallowed hard. What did she say? And there it was, the opening, the moment I had been waiting for, the moment to deliver the truth, so heavy he wouldn't be able to run from it. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. She told me she felt you pulling away long before she got sick. He flinched but didn't look away. She said she tried to talk to you, that she tried to tell you she missed you, that she felt alone, that she noticed when you stopped holding her hand, when you stopped telling her you loved her without her saying it first. He stared down at the counter, hands clasped tightly. She said she didn't know what she'd done wrong. I continued. She asked me if you still wanted her, if you still saw her as your wife, or if she had already become a burden. His breath hitched. And then, I said, voice softening, she told me what scared her the most. He lifted his gaze slowly, fear in his eyes. What scared her the most, I said, was the idea that you'd be relieved when she was gone. His face twisted in pain. I let that sink in. She thought, I whispered, that her death would make your life easier. He shook his head violently. No, Mom, that's not true. It's not, she thought. I continued, that you would finally be free of responsibility, that without her, you could go back to living however you wanted. He put his hands over his face, breathing heavily, shaking. She cried, I said, my voice breaking now. She cried because she believed she was holding you back. She cried because she thought you had stopped loving her. He slammed his hand against the table. Stop, he shouted, voice cracking. Stop, Mom. I can't hear this. But he had to hear it. He had to face it. I lowered my tone, but not my resolve. You need to know what she believed, because your actions made her believe it. He looked up, tears falling freely now. I wasn't trying to hurt her, he whispered. I didn't know how to deal with everything. No, I responded. You didn't want to deal with it. There's a difference. He stared at me, defeated, broken, open, stripped of every excuse. And so I delivered the final blow, the one truth I knew would shatter the last wall he was hiding behind. She told me, I whispered slowly, that her final wish was to hear you say you loved her, one last time. His chest heaved. He choked on his breath. Tears poured down his cheeks. He looked like he'd been stabbed because emotionally, he had been. She doesn't think I love her anymore, he whispered, voice cracking in half. She thinks I stopped loving her. I nodded. Yes. And then I said the words that broke him completely. And if she dies, she will die believing that. He collapsed forward on the counter, sobbing into his hands, deep, guttural sobs that came from a place inside him he had been avoiding for months. That was the moment he finally realized his absence wasn't avoiding pain, it was causing it. His fear wasn't protecting him, it was destroying her. And his selfishness wasn't temporary, it was rewriting the last memories she would ever have of him. When he finally looked up at me, red-eyed and shaking, his voice was barely audible. "What do I do?" he whispered. I reached across the table and took his hand. "You go to her," I said. "Today, right now. You sit beside her. You hold her hand. You tell her the truth, the whole truth, before it's too late." He nodded, wiping his face, but his eyes were filled with something new, resolve, and something else, fear of the truth he now had to face. Because the next step, the one he had avoided for weeks, was coming, and it would change everything. The visit he tried to avoid, my son didn't speak for a long time after. I told him the truth. He just sat there with his head bowed, breathing unevenly, trying to absorb every word. He looked like a man who had been slammed into a wall by reality, because that's exactly what happened. And for the first time, he didn't defend himself, didn't argue, didn't shift blame, didn't hide behind excuses. The truth had hit him too hard to pretend anymore. After a long silence, he finally whispered, "I need to go." "Good," I said. "You should have gone days ago." He didn't get angry this time. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't tell me I didn't understand. He simply nodded, grabbed his jacket with shaking hands, and headed for the door. But just before he stepped outside, he paused. His hand hovered over the doorknob like a man standing on the edge of a cliff, afraid to jump, even though staying still would kill him just the same. He whispered, "What if she doesn't want to see me?" I walked toward him slowly. "She does," I said. "More than anything." He nodded again, eyes glossy, then finally walked out, and I stood there, staring at the closed door, praying he wouldn't lose his courage on the way. He drove to the hospital alone. I didn't go with him, not because I didn't want to, but because I knew this moment had to be between him and his wife. No buffers, no mediators, no one to soften the impact. He needed to face her, look her in the eyes, and understand what his absence had done. About 20 minutes after he left, my phone buzzed with a text. "I'm here, I'm going in." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. But then, 10 minutes passed, then 20, then 30. No messages, no updates, nothing. Each passing minute stretched my nerves tight, like a thread ready to snap. Was he with her? Was he breaking down? Was she awake enough to talk? Was she even still alive? My heart twisted with every possibility. Finally, 48 minutes after his last text, my phone vibrated again. "Mom, please come." My stomach dropped. Was something wrong with her? Had her condition worsened? Was my son collapsing under the weight of his guilt? I didn't ask questions. I just grabbed my keys and left. When I arrived at the hospital, my son was seated in the hallway outside her room, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees and his head bowed. He didn't look up when I walked over. I sat beside him quietly. His voice broke the silence first. I froze. I waited. He finally lifted his head, and his eyes were swollen red and wet. "I walked into her room," he said, voice trembling, "and she looked so small. Mom," his words cracked. "She used to be so full of life, so loud, so funny, so stubborn. Now she's quiet, pale, hooked up to machines. Her chest rises like she's fighting for every breath." I nodded gently, letting him speak. He took a shaky inhale, and the first thing she said when she saw me wasn't, "Where were you?" or "Why didn't you come?" He swallowed hard. She smiled, a real smile. His voice broke. "After everything," she smiled. Tears filled my eyes, and then she whispered. He continued, "I missed you." That shattered him all over again. He covered his face with both hands, his shoulders shaking. "I don't deserve her," he choked. "I don't deserve her love. Not after what I did. Not after I left her alone." I let him cry. He needed to feel it, every ounce of it. After a moment, he continued. "I walked up to her bed. She reached for my hand. I didn't even think she'd have the strength, but she grabbed me like she didn't want to ever let go." His voice dropped to a whisper. "She said she thought I didn't love her anymore." I touched his arm gently. "And what did you say?" He wiped his face with the back of his hand. "I told her the truth, that I'd been selfish, that I'd been scared, that I ran because I didn't know how to lose her." He winced, and she said, his voice cracked again, "You're not losing me yet, but I was losing you." My breath caught. He shook his head in disbelief. "She wasn't angry, Mom. She wasn't cold. She wasn't disappointed. She was just sad. Sad that I wasn't there. Sad that our daughter was confused. Sad that I didn't hold her when she needed me." He clenched his jaw. "She didn't deserve any of this." "No," I said softly. "She didn't." He brushed away another tear. "I told her I loved her. I told her I always have, and she cried not because she was hurt, but because she thought I'd never say it again. A long pause. Then the nurse came in. He whispered, "And Mom, she's worse than I thought. They're adjusting her medication. She's struggling to stay awake." He looked at me, desperate and small. I wasted so much time. I didn't sugarcoat it. "Yes," I said, "you did." He lowered his gaze. "But you're here now, and that matters." He nodded, though grief still clouded his face. "I just want to make it right," he said, "even if she doesn't have much time left." I placed my hand over his. "Then don't leave her side again." His eyes flickered with something stronger, determination, double quotes. "No, I won't," he said firmly. "I promise." I squeezed his hand. "Good, because the next hours, days, however long she has left, she needs you more than ever." He took a deep breath. "Mom." "Yes." He turned toward me slowly. "There's something else, something she said after you left." I tilted my head. "What did she say?" He swallowed, bracing himself. "She asked me the one question I never thought she'd ask." A long, heavy silence fell between us. I whispered, "What question?" And he said, "She asked if I had someone else." My heart stopped. And before I could respond, he added, "She already knows, Mom, and she's not as blind as we thought." When the truth finally left my mouth, the silence that followed was so loud it felt like the walls themselves were listening. His mother froze mid. His sister set her phone down like it suddenly weighed 20 pounds. Even the air felt heavier, like the room knew this was the moment everything shifted. But he didn't say a single word. He just stared at me with that expression men get when their entire game plan falls apart right in front of them. Not anger, not sadness, just calculation, as if he was already trying to figure out how to twist the situation next. I watched him swallow hard, his jaw tightening, his hands clasping together like a man who suddenly realized he was standing at the edge of a cliff. "You're lying," he finally said, his voice low, almost shaky. I laughed, not a happy laugh, not even a sarcastic one. It was the kind of laugh you let out when you know you've already won, and the other side hasn't accepted it yet. "Lying," I repeated. "Your own father told you. You chose not to believe him. That's on you, not me." His mother snapped out of her shock and shot up from the couch so fast she nearly tripped. "Is this true?" she barked at him. "Tell me right now." He dropped his head, palms pressing against his forehead, elbows on his knees. He didn't answer. His silence answered for him. His mother stepped closer, voice trembling with fury. "You used this family. You used her family. You used me," she said, "for money." He didn't respond. And I didn't save him. For once, I wasn't going to be the person who softened the blow. I wanted them to see him exactly as he was, without my excuses, without my protection, without my silence. He had built his whole world on lies, and now it was collapsing, brick by brick. His sister suddenly stood up. "Wait," she said, her voice sharp. "Is this why you kept getting those calls? Why you kept disappearing for hours? Why you suddenly wanted everything done fast? The wedding, the joint accounts, the paperwork?" I turned toward her and nodded slowly. "Yes. Because his plan was times. Once everything was in place, once everything was legal, he was going to take what he came for." His sister covered her mouth. "Oh my God." His mother shook her head. "Do you know what this makes us look like?" she said, her voice trembling. "Your father trusted you with part of the company, and you were going to throw your entire future away for greed." She sat down, stunned, rubbing her temples. Meanwhile, he finally lifted his head. "Stop acting like saints," he snapped. "You all think you know everything. You think she's innocent. You think she didn't know what she was doing. He pointed at me. "She only married me because her father has money." I raised an eyebrow. "So suddenly I'm the gold digger? After you tried to access my dad's accounts before the wedding, after you forged signatures, after you pressured me to hand over control of finances. Nice try." His family turned to him again, even more disgusted than before. His mother exhaled sharply. "Is that true?" she demanded. He didn't even argue this time. His face said everything. His sister stepped away from him like he was contagious. "You really disgust me," she said. "You had everything. You had a fiancé who loved you. You had a family that trusted you. And you threw it away because you wanted fast money." He stood up suddenly, knocking over a glass from the coffee table. "You don't get it," he shouted. "You've never been broke. You've never been desperate. You've never felt like you were behind your entire life. I was supposed to have more. I was supposed to be more. And he pointed at me again, was my only way to fix it." I stepped closer to him, calm, steady, unafraid. So I wasn't a wife, I said quietly. I was a plan. He didn't deny it, and that silence hit harder than any insult ever could. His mother turned to me suddenly, her voice softer. I am so sorry, she said. You didn't deserve any of this. I nodded. I know. She surprised me. She reached forward and hugged me. A strong, tight, genuine hug. The kind of hug mothers give when they finally see the truth. I should have listened to your father at the wedding, she whispered. I should have known something was wrong. I should have protected you. I pulled back gently. You're not the one who failed me, I said. He did, this time. When I turned to him, he wasn't angry. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't pointing fingers. He just looked small, like a little boy caught stealing but too stubborn to admit it. Please, he said, his voice suddenly soft, desperate. Don't ruin my life. My brows lifted. I didn't ruin your life, I said. You built this disaster with your own hands. He opened his mouth to argue, but before he could speak, his mother stepped between us. You're leaving, she told him. Right now. What, Mom? Right now. Her voice was thunder. He grabbed his jacket, slammed the door behind him, and walked out. For the first time in months, the house felt peaceful. His sister let out a shaky breath. Wow, she said. That was a lot. I nodded. You have no idea. His mother sat back down and looked at me with a seriousness I hadn't seen before. This isn't over, she said firmly. Your wedding, his behavior, the lies, there's more, and you deserve to know everything. I felt a chill run through me. Everything, I repeated. She nodded slowly. Yes, because there's something he didn't tell you, something he didn't tell anyone. And I swear, in that moment, my heart stopped. The truth that destroyed him. The room felt colder now. Every eye in the house was on me, waiting for the revelation that would finally lay bare the full scope of my son's betrayal. His mother, his sister, even the faint hum of the air conditioner seemed to hold its breath. And I, standing there, had the last word. I let the silence stretch for a moment, let them feel the tension, the weight of what had been hidden for so long. Then I spoke. There's something you need to know, I said, my voice steady, sharp, and calm. Something he's been hiding from everyone. His mother leaned forward, lips parted, eyes wide. His sister clutched her phone as if she might drop it from shock, and I saw it, the faint twitch of fear, across my son's features. Though he wasn't in the room anymore, he knew what was coming. Before Lindsay got sick, I continued, he wasn't just out driving with girls. He wasn't just leaving her alone in the hospital. He was planning, calculating, using her while pretending to care. Every smile, every touch, every promise, a lie designed to get him what he wanted. The words hit like a hammer. His mother gasped, covering her mouth. His sister's eyes filled with tears. Even, I could feel the chill of the betrayal all over again. He was already making moves to secure her family's assets. I said slowly, he thought if she got too sick to fight back, too weak to control anything, it would all fall into his hands. And when that didn't happen fast enough, he started seeking distractions, girls, parties, whatever made him feel alive while she fought for hers. I let my words linger, let them echo in the room. She believed him. She trusted him. She loved him more than life itself. And he repaid that love by abandoning her, humiliating her, and planning to use her illness to his advantage. My son's mother choked back a sob. Oh my God, she whispered. I can't believe this. Believe it, I said firmly, because it's true. And the worst part, he thought no one would ever find out, that he could get away with it, that he could pretend to the world that he was a loving husband while he was slowly destroying the person he promised to protect. His sister shook her head, voice trembling. I can't. How could he? He's a coward, I said plainly. And tonight, he found out that cowardice has consequences. I paused, letting the words sink in, because I made sure he heard everything, every word she whispered when she thought he wasn't listening, every fear, every doubt, every tear. And when he finally walked into her hospital room, he realized that all his games, all his lies, all his selfish choices were meaningless. His mother looked at me, eyes wide with tears. You told him. I did, I said. I told him every truth she could not speak, every fear she had about him leaving, every thought she had about her life with him, and her life without him. The room was silent again, but this time, it wasn't just tension. It was the weight of justice, the natural consequence of betrayal. I continued, my voice quieter now, but cutting through the air like a knife. He broke the one person who loved him unconditionally. He almost destroyed the daughter he will never be able to protect from this betrayal. and he almost lost the respect of everyone who trusted him. But he has to live with this. Not for me, not for anyone else. For him, he has to face the destruction he caused, and he has to understand that some things can never be undone. His mother's hand shook as she reached for mine. I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything, I replied. Just remember. Remember the person he really is. Remember the choices he made, and remember that what he lost can't be fixed with apologies or excuses. She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. I understand. His sister stood silently, finally whispering, he doesn't deserve a second chance. I nodded. No, not yet, and maybe never. At that moment, I felt the full weight of what I had done. I had delivered the ultimate truth. I had dismantled his carefully constructed facade. I had exposed him fully to the consequences of his actions. And it worked, because hours later, I got the call. My son, broken, crying, unable to speak without trembling, finally admitted everything. Every lie, every betrayal, every selfish decision. And in that confession, I knew he finally understood. Some mistakes are unforgivable. Some betrayals are permanent. And some children, and some wives, they deserve truth over excuses, honesty over comfort, justice over silence. He walked out of her hospital room that night a changed man, not because I forgave him, not because the world forgave him, but because the truth had destroyed the illusions he had built around himself. And sometimes, destruction is the only path to clarity. Final scene. Weeks later, Lindsay recovered, slowly, painfully, but she survived. My son was left to pick up the pieces of his conscience, every family member he had betrayed, every relationship he had shattered, and every moment of his selfishness came back to him, in the form of shame, regret, and the constant reminder of what he almost lost. It was never about revenge. It was never about punishment. It was about truth. And truth, when wielded at the right time, has a power no lie can withstand.